So let's talk about Clayface. And of course, we can't do that without going to the best stage in the game, with the greatest actor of all time, as its theme, of course. Clayface, if I had to summarize, I would just say it's not a friend of the opponent. As you can see, he has 1045 health. However, he has 590 stun. This is a bit of a lopsided design that I've gone through because of the fact that stamina's kind of his deal, but you know, metaphorically speaking, and even in the comic books, he can't really take a punch all that well. So how is he able to survive so much of the onslaught that's been given to him by the other characters in this game? Well, you just have to experience his story mode to find out. In the meantime, let's start right off of his normals. Right here we have this step kick. It does move him a bit. We have a straight punch for his hard punch, and his lights are a bit on the stubby side, except for his punches, as you can see. These guys are aggressively big. So, the reason for that is he's got stubby little legs. And as you can see, he's a little slow. Not really, but kinda. The reason for this is the second he lobs a projectile, since that is part of him, he shrinks a little bit. And I'll give you a quick example of that. As you can see, he got a little bit bigger. And if I would do it this way, I shrink a lot more than you would, and then I get right back big again. During that time period, obviously, he can move a little bit faster than he normally could. And it's important to remember that because you can do a lot of things that you otherwise couldn't, giving him a lot of movement that otherwise doesn't exist. I wanted to keep him simple, but I wanted everything about him to be a little complicated from the mechanics point of view, on paper, the numbers, if you will. I wanted to make sure that the last character of this game was the absolute epitome of all the things that I've learned in the process of making this, and he is no exception to the rule. So right off the bat, as you know, he has charge attacks. He's not the only one. Raphael and Rat King also have them, but only just one. He, however, is built entirely around that simple fact. And in some of those cases, they give him buffs that otherwise don't exist. For example, this is not cancelable on his own, but if you charge it, it is. This is allowing him to get a lot more Oki that he otherwise wouldn't have, and set up some things that are really cool to do. Now, before you ask, you can't set up the unblockable that way. It's too slow and too fast at the same time. Now, the hitbox on this guy, it changes quite a bit. And to show you what I mean, so Batman can be hit right about there, yeah? You notice that he can't be hit here despite the fact that my fist is clearly touching him. But if I charge it, I still can. Not only does the hitbox on it extend, but as you can see, the most I normally can get is around 8 at its lowest, or an 11 if you have perfect timing. But as you can see here, I hit him higher and I'm still got 8. That's right. Clayface is able to get additional advantage off of his charge jumping hard punch. This is important to remember because if he does it as an ed area, it also floor bounces, allowing him to get an additional combo that wouldn't otherwise exist. These are just some of the many things that he can do based off of that. His back hard punch, for example, if you charge that all the way up, the advantage on it changes ever so slightly. If I were to have the AI block this normally, what will happen is, it's -6 here, but, actually, never mind, that's a lie. Point is, it becomes harder to punish because the pushback is a lot higher. As opposed to here, where, well, I guess you're just going to see us throw a lot, huh? There we go. Yeah, otherwise it's free to punish. So, with that being said, it's important to remember as Clayface to know when you should and shouldn't use charge attacks. Now, you can still charge this and cancel it if you ever so wanted to. However, the main appeal of it is the fact that, one, if he does it to you on the ground, as you saw in the trailer, you get wall stuck. But if he does it to you in the air, let's see if I can do it. There we go. You get a wall bounce. All of these are about setting up Oki, simply because of the fact that he has this guy, which is unblockable, but very slow to start up. Now, I'm not saying this is an absolute guaranteed unblockable setup, because anybody with a reversal can clearly get out of these. But this is just many of the tools that he has in his arsenal. As you've seen, his throw is a nice throw that chucks them far away, whereas his command grab, he grabs them and impales them, allowing you to set up juggles. Some of the favorites that you probably have seen is this guy. Like, very considerable damage for the fact that I've only pressed like 4 buttons. Now, obviously, his projectiles work in a way that if you do it normally, they fall at a specific speed depending on the version that you do. However, if you charge them, the advantage is not only you do more damage, but the time that it takes to come down is a little higher, allowing you to keep the opponent on their toes, allowing you to do things that otherwise they could not account for. Batman, for example, he has his grappling hook stomp. However, if you have a projectile set up just right, he'll get hit on the way before he can even hit you. These are some of the things that Clayface can do to shorten his matchup problems. That said, he still has a number of bad matchups that you will find on your own. Now, if we were to do his other special, which is just done by pressing light punch and light kick, as you saw in the trailer, I did show you how to do a lot of this, yeah? So, he's the third character in this game to have an input this way. The reason being is, well, if you press back, he does that. If you press forward, he goes forward a little bit. And if you do nothing, he just goes up a little bit. This attack is done entirely up to you. You can choose when you want to activate it. Doing so, he has iframes on the first 3 frames of the actual attack. And it is an overhead. However, the Omega-1 is not an overhead. That one's just a mid. It's important to keep that in mind because not only is it more telegraphed, but he can combo after it. So you kind of don't want to get caught by that if you can help it. Now, the very last special is the most important one. He has a Rekka, an honest true Rekka. Not like April and the other characters where you just press an unbutton. You have to complete the motion 3 times. The reason being is, if you were to stop it short, as you can see, the advantage you get changes. I had 66 versus 43. It's important to remember that, because you can define exactly how much Oki you want, or if you want to trade the damage off and get the full 100, as you can see there. Now, why does this matter? Well, obviously, you're going to set up the spike ball traps there. That's the most important deal that he has. However, if you do a full charge, it also launches. This is just something I felt was cool to have. It's not really required. It's not really worth doing damage, but it is a reward nonetheless. Just a thing you do. Now, the Omega-1 does complete on its own, and that's perfectly fine with me. I mean, even with that, as you can see, you can't juggle into it. But if you ever do land it, it is 90. That's a pretty sizable amount of damage. And that's just some of the many things that Clayface can do to shore up things. And it's worth mentioning that, obviously, if you shoot these projectiles out, you can do really interesting, silly mix-ups like that. And it just goes on and on and on. I can't wait to see the creativity that you guys bring to this character. I always am watching content that people put out, even if I'm not really commenting. But it's been a joy to do all this. Now, before I get too much into my little stories of thanks and all that, let's talk about his supers. You may notice that this one does 275, and this one does 225. The reason being is it's situational. Now, the positioning that you get from doing one super versus the other is why there's such a big damage difference. And knowing when to use one super versus the other is night and day for the matchup, because as you can see, that one gave us a full 84. Whereas this one only gives us 70. So it's about the amount of Oki that you want to have. And every frame counts when you have a character who's so good at setting up the next oncoming attack and incoming attack. Now, so Omega Super is probably one of my favorites, simply because it's got all these fists coming from the ground, doing big damage. It's like the ultimate climax of all the things that this game has brought. So, obviously, I did not show what happens in tag mode when you have him. So, I guess I'll show that briefly. It's really nothing spectacular. Because tag mode is not something that I took entirely too seriously. And we're seeing another one of his colors, yeah? So, he just comes straight down with the spike trap and does a floor bounce. So, with that being said, I want to thank all of you for watching this game grow from beginning to end. Those of you stuck around and played it, tried it out, shared it, told your friends about it, you have no idea what this meant to me and everyone else who worked on this. And the amount of names that have worked on this grows in ways that it's hard for me to even recall. It's so many people who are passionate about this thing. So, obviously, this is going to launch on the 31st of 2022, December. I don't know why I said it that way. But there's some story mode content that is not unfortunately coming with it. I had to prioritize specific things to get it done so you guys can actually play this game, like his trials and all the demonstrations that come with that. And I'll talk about that at some point. But that's Clayface in a nutshell. You'd be surprised that the things that I still have yet to talk about with this character, but I did tell you everything that's there. What you decide to string together is ultimately up to you, and I hope you have fun finding it out. See you next time, guys. Oh, I forgot to mention, his taunt. His taunt does something to every character in the game. Now, what that means is, if you see it do nothing, that means it's doing something. If you see it do something, that means it's doing nothing. That's Clayface in a nutshell. Every taunt is important. Every single one of them. Now I'm leaving for real. Now I'm really, really going.